Hello and welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Football Perspective podcast. My name is Nathaniel, and yes, I'm joined once again by my good friend Matt. Happy post-draft day, Matt. How you getting on?
Yeah, very good, thank you. Yeah, very good. Apologies if I sound a little hoarse. Again, competing in strongman this weekend, so lots of shouting, lots of encouragement, lots of moving some big weights around in 34-degree heat. As you saw yourself, thank you for coming down and supporting me, man. It meant a lot.
Absolutely. Now, obviously, I know how you did. Do you want to tell the audience how you got on?
Yeah, I moved up a category, so I moved up from the beginners to novice category. Finished fifth out of 16 athletes, so yeah, I'll take that for my first one. Yeah, really happy with it. Really happy with it. It was a long day, about 12 hours of lifting, which was a lot, but yeah, feel well. I was gonna say I feel good right now. I feel a bit battered, but yeah, looking forward to chatting some hockey anyway and putting my feet up a little bit.
Yeah. I would say you finished fifth, but I think you finished first out of the regular people there. Everyone else who finished above you seemed to be like superhuman in one way or another.
Mildly, yeah, mildly enhanced. No, yeah, it was. Yeah, there was some outstanding athletes there. Some really really good
Well,
athletes there, and yeah, I absolutely love strongman. I've made that clear on previous episodes. It's a big passion of mine alongside hockey, of course. But I can't skate. So you never know. Maybe if I can lace up a pair of skates, maybe I could be a seventh round pick as a physical stay at home defenseman where I don't have to go anywhere.
if only you liked fighting, you'd make a good fourth line grinder.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I
something
don't
like
think
that.
you're a fighter, are
Not at all.
Oh. Right. So one of the biggest weekends of the NHL off season, you were busy moving some sandbags across a grass field. So I hope you managed to read and catch up on some of the news and the draft and things. But it's been quite the weekend.
Yes, it has. Yeah, it's been a great draft weekend. We've had I think this year above others, we've seen teams being really willing to trade picks around. We've seen teams moving all over the board. We got kind of big shocks at the start of the first round. But yeah, I was kind of keeping up to date with it as much as I could. Yeah, it was you know, it's one of my favorite weekends of the year. I absolutely love it. I kind of spend all year kind of getting ready for the draft and keeping an eye on prospects and everything. That is my jam. And yeah, certainly there was some interesting moves going around.
Yeah. So this is one thing I wanted to start on. Really, is they don't make this whole draft process easy for the sort of the easygoing fans and viewers. Yes, teams love a trade, but it gets to the point where they set up the draft so that the worst teams pick first. But then everyone just swaps and around changes anyway. It's like a bowl of Cheerios. Like, like the top three teams all picked where they should have picked. Spoiler, but pick four changed. And like, okay, the top sort of top 10, top 14 are all kind of all picked where they should do. From that point, you got teams trading like left, right, and centre. There's a pick there. It's gone through four teams. The 25th pick, for example, Ottawa Senators from Tampa Bay via Seattle and Florida. The 26th pick, Montreal Canadiens from Dallas via Carolina via New York Rangers via Vegas Golden Knights. The 29th pick, Vegas Golden Knights from Colorado via New York Islanders via St. Louis and via Anaheim. And you just think, fucking hell, just settle down. Just pick your pit players. This will nobody can keep track on who's picking where. It's mental.
Yeah, and that's it because you can trade draft picks up to 5 years in advance. So you can now trade, I believe, you can trade 2031 draft picks. You know, they will get passed around, and especially when they're sort of contending teams and things like that. They'll be using those picks to add players for the now. Um, I've seen Vegas's name in there a couple of times, and Vegas don't care years ago who they're going to be drafting in 3 years' time. They want someone to help them win now. So Yeah, yeah. Some of these picks in particular get a little bit confusing in terms of their ownership, and obviously you have things like picks that are top 10 protected or top 5 protected, or you have like conditions attached to them and things like that, which is which again makes it a little bit difficult for the casual fan. But yeah, yeah, I mean it's classic NHL. It's like we just expect you to know all of our rules and to just get on with it.
Combine that into that some of these players won't be playing in the NHL for a few years. It's just this is why I think uh, I'm not to criticise the NHL, but this is why I prefer speaking like off season, like when a few months down the line where they're building out the rosters and we can start seeing who's actually going to be playing this year. That's what excites me more, seeing what young players are actually going to be moving up, as opposed to trying to cover this draft process in great detail because it's just a mad jumble soup of it doesn't mean anything. You're speaking French to me right now.
Yeah, we.
But not to kill on this episode already, Nathaniel, you miserable.
Old
I won't even
man.
swear. Old man. get off my get off my recliner chair. Shall we talk draft then?
Yeah,
Um,
we'll rattle through the top 10. There was also some great stories as well that came out of the draft. But the top three players that we both had selected in our draft, I mean, in terms of the players themselves, they all came true. First overall pick was the couldn't miss pick. The Toronto Maple Leafs selected Gavin McKenna. They weirded it out by. I'm not a massive fan of. This is my old man rant. I'm not a massive fan of when they try to integrate pop culture into these sorts of things. Because it would always be like the Toronto Maple Leafs are proud to select from Penn State University Gavin McKenna, but instead they bring Justin Bieber out, who goes, Mr. McKenna, you're a Toronto Maple Leaf, and it's like, huh? Yeah, it was a little bit weird, but I mean, I know it doesn't make any difference, and I'm sure to Gavin McKenna it makes no difference either. But yeah, McKenna went first overall to Toronto as expected.
yeah, can't miss pick. The Canadian boy uh, goes to Toronto. Yeah, there's not much really to break down that hasn't already been said in the past several months. We know who he is. He's the next superstar of this league, and he's gone to the Tiffany franchise of the league as well. So enjoy that, Toronto.
Now,
But then,
yeah, Ivar Stenberg did end up being drafted second overall from Frölunda in Sweden, but not to the Chicago Blackhawks as we both predicted, because that fourth overall pick wasn't there for Chicago to trade. The He ended up being drafted to San Jose, which I think was pretty much cut and dry from the moment that San Jose made that trade involving William Eklund to get that ninth overall pick. Obviously, they made that trade with they made the trade with Ottawa. That was where was it? Eklund went
big time.
to the Senators with Kasper Halttunen and Brandon Svoboda in exchange for the ninth overall pick, which they ended up drafting in as well. Spoiler alert. So I think it was clear to see as soon as Eklund went, and that moved them back into the top 10 of the draft. I think it made it pretty clear at that point that Stenberg was going to be a San Jose Shark, which I'm a bit gutted about because I would have loved to have seen him in Chicago, but they get another young stud forward to add to Celebrini, Smith, Misa, Colin Graff, all these really exciting young forwards that they got, and they just get to add another one in there, Nathaniel.
I really, really like what San Jose have done in this draft.
Hmm.
William Eklund is a great player. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he is predominantly a centre that's been playing out of the wing due to San Jose's sort of roster build up. But anyway, they get rid of Eklund to the Senators for the ninth overall pick. a place where you can take your pick of one of the many defensemen that are kind of top 10 quality, and then that leaves you free to take pick two for Ivar Stenberg. So Stenberg, we both think are going to be NHL ready, thereabouts. If he
Hmm.
gets going, he's a natural winger. So now they've got Celebrini and Misa and things like that. They've got Will
Yeah,
Smith. It is Will Smith, but then they got Stenberg on the wing, natural position, get his foot down straight away and fly. They didn't need to worry about reaching for a defenseman in number two or trading down to four, which is where we were thinking they might go down to get their defenseman. And they get arguably, possibly the best defenseman in this draft as well. Some people might think. So I just really like what they've done. And obviously, they had a third first round pick as well later down the line. Who was it they selected there?
it was Ryan Lynn.
Ryan Lynn. Yeah, another
Yeah,
decent
another.
defense prospect.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. He was another one who was really kind of highly rated, and I think when it seemed that he was falling into that position, and San Jose then traded up. I think they traded up a couple of spots to get back into 21 in order to take Ryan Lynn. So, yeah, look, obviously there's the Chicago San Jose kind of rivalry that's forming here. I'm gutted that they had as good a draft day as they did. But if you're a Sharks fan, you are super happy. With everything, with everything that they did. And if you're a Vancouver Canucks fan, I think you're also happy with your pick at number three. It was Caleb Malhotra, the best center in the draft. We said, kind of the whole father son kind of matter aside. Malhotra's the best centre in this draft. If you're a rebuilding team, it's always good to start that rebuild with a centre. And that's the man they've got. I think he's probably a year away from cracking the NHL. He's going to go to college for a year, and focus on his all round game, and then hopefully come into the NHL next season, potentially, with an opportunity to play for his dad, Manny Malhotra. So, yeah, Brantford in the OHL have had a track record over recent years of producing some really good NHL talent. So, yeah, great pick for Vancouver.
I think he's a very solid pick. It's not as splashy as a McKenna or a Stenberg, but I think he's a future NHLer. I'm looking at the name escapes my head. The Seattle center. What's he called?
Shane Wright?
Shane Wright. It's kind of what I see from Malhotra in.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I don't think you're wrong at all. I think I think they're both quite similar players. Malhotra will be that kind of 200-foot two-way center, does it all, good at the face-off dot, good defensively, and can lead an offense as well. So, if he pans out to be, what people think he will be, then they've got a cracking player, at number three there. Um, and then we got our first our first unexpected pick off the board. The Buffalo Sabres, they had the fourth overall pick. I didn't think there was any world where they were going to use that pick. I thought it was prime trade bait. But they took defenseman Daxon Rudolph from the Prince Albert Raiders, in the WHL. We had a good little giggle over Prince Albert last time. But this is Daxon Rudolph was not anticipated to go as high as he did. I think he was, probably someone who the Sharks maybe had an eye on, at that ninth overall pick, as someone who might have been available. But Buffalo clearly sees something within him that they think they can develop. And with Buffalo's window being where it is at the moment, in terms of their competitiveness, they've got the time to allow Rudolph to, go and develop for a couple of years, and then come in when he's ready. There's no need to rush him into the NHL. Obviously, they've got Radim Mertka from last year's draft as well, a massive defenseman who plays very physically. And you've got Daxon Rudolph, who is a pure offense kind of guy. Scored a lot of points last season in the WHL. Yeah, I think I can see the logic in that pick. It was just a bit higher than I think than what people expected, and they wanted a righty. They got a righty.
Yeah, I don't know about this. I don't know about this at all. Um, both for Buffalo and for Chicago. Now, I remember speaking. Obviously, you've done an episode with Ryan McGregor like a couple of days ago. We spoke to him a couple of months ago, and I remember having that conversation about how you would kind of expect or be happy for Chicago to trade down in this draft. If you weren't going to be able to get Stenberg or McKenna, trade down and
Hmm.
recycle the picks. But seeing what Chicago got from that trade for essentially getting Bowen Byram, and then Buffalo coming in and signing what could be the next Bowen Byram, it just doesn't make much sense to me. Like
The
you're trading up to fourth and you're having a bit of a reach to a player that ain't going to quite be ready. I don't quite get it.
and this is a prime opportunity to jump into the Byram trade. I know we haven't really, we haven't covered it as of yet. Um, the thing is, right, Daxon Rudolph might well be the next Bowen Byram, but he might not be the next Bowen Byram for another 4 years. Chicago cannot wait 4 more years to move this thing forward. They need to start adding guys now who can make a real impact. And in Bowen Byram, what I think they've got is someone who can absolutely be a number one defenseman in this league. You look at where Bowen Byram's played already, and Byram has been log jammed behind Cale Makar and Devon Taves in Colorado, and Owen Power, and not Owen Power, Rasmus Dahlin in Buffalo. So it's not as though Bowen Byram has not been a number one defenseman in this league yet because he isn't good enough, but he's been stuck behind two of the five best defensemen in this league, which has stopped him being able to crack into that top position. Now, like I said, Chicago needed to move this thing forward. Bowen Byram is 25, I want to say. He fits the timeline of the team. Um, and there was a lot of teams sniffing around him, including the New York Rangers, who offered that fifth overall pick in order to get him. Um, so unfortunately, Chicago had to, they had to up the ante. They had to get that fourth overall pick involved. Now, if Byram had gone to the Sharks or to the Rangers, as two of those teams that were heavily interested, Chicago fans everywhere would have been saying this is the kind of guy that you should have been trading for. He fits the timeline, he fits the profile. He was someone you could have gone out and got. Why didn't you go and get him? And then everyone's criticizing Kyle Davidson for not being able to make a big trade. Was it an overpay? Absolutely, it was an overpay. But as we've seen from a lot of the trades going down around the league recently, the trade market has become really expensive because the free agency market has died over the last year or two and will continue to do so for the next 2 to 3 years until the salary cap sort of levels out. So teams are having to give up more in order to get these key players. Um, so they've got one more year of Byram at I think 6 million. They're looking to, or there or thereabouts. They're looking to extend him long term. Byram's happy to be there. He's got an opportunity to be a number one defenseman on a team moving forward. And let's not throw this trade out as being absolutely horrendous until we see him play 82 games for Chicago next season.
And here's one of my counterpoints, Matt.
Mm.
Has he ever played 82 games before? And the answer is no.
Uh,
I don't think he has. He's moved from
possible.
team to team. He's been out with injuries. Um,
A lot of his injuries, though, have been predominantly concussion based. So he's missed
oh,
time.
great. Oh, oh, that
So,
makes things so much better. Oh,
which I
he's
know,
definitely going to be absolutely fine.
which I know is not probably what you know, but I would rather it was someone with a concussion rather than someone with a torn ACL. You know, you don't re-damage you know, and that's just a case of being on a, you know, on the end of a bad hit. But I think he's certainly played a lot more games last. I think he's only missed a couple of games in the last couple of years. I
To be
could
fair,
be
the last
wrong.
two seasons he has played 82 games.
Yeah.
So I'll back off a little bit from that, but my point still remains. Yes, the trade market's expensive. Chicago has had this litany of picks and all these young prospects and stuff like that.
Mm.
And I just feel he's done exactly what you didn't want him to do and waste what I guess what he's had, or what he's got. Now, what he could have got else out there, I don't know. And this is why I'm gonna put the money where my mouth is. Really, like this is my take. I don't think this trade is going to pan out. I think
Okay.
there's going to be a lot of hope and promise. A lot of Chicago fans are now trying to force feed the happiness pills to make themselves think that Bowen Byram's going to be the next Cale McCarr or the next Rasmus Dahlin, and that he was only not there because those players were there. The best players in the league will end up getting the most minutes.
Yeah.
Like he's had enough time now to prove and show in the time he's been given that he is the next big thing, and he's a perfectly fine NHL defenseman. He's probably power play two quarterback. I just don't think it's given up on the capital that you've now lost
No,
for
I
it.
mean,
But
the
that's just where
real
I think.
the thing is we won't know if this trade is a win or a loss. We probably won't know that for about 3 4 years because it depends what Daxon Rudolph becomes. It depends what Albert Smiths and Carson Carrolls and Chase Reed, Keaton Verhoff. It kind of depends on what they all become. But I mean, my point still stands in the fact that, you know, you had to move this thing forward. You know, you had to start, you know, adding guys, even if it comes at a little bit of a bit of an overpayment. By the sounds of it, Kyle Davidson is not done. Let's not forget they added Jordan Greenway as a part of this deal as well. um,
Just the
that
player
was
Chicago needs.
that was a tongue in cheek. Well, actually, you
Yeah.
say that, but Jordan Greenway is exactly the kind of player that Chicago needs right now in their bottom six.
She
Chicago,
traded all your Jordan Greenways out last year
well,
at
they
the
had
trade
what
deadline.
they, yeah, a little bit, but you needed to
You
replenish it
created
still.
that need. You can't celebrate the fact that he defeats and he like completes a need for something that your general manager created at the trade deadline by letting all you
I'm
guys go.
I'm trying to absorb some copium here, Nathaniel.
I
Let me
know.
live. But yeah, look, we'll see how it pans out. We'll see how it pans out. Will Bowen Byram ever be Rasmus Dahlin or Cale McCarr? Probably not. Okay, but I would say that the pair of those two go beyond what you would expect a um a number one defenseman on an NHL team to be. They are an elite number one defenseman on an NHL team. Now, if Bowen Byram can be a number one defenseman on an NHL team, and then you know if Levshinov can continue to develop and he can become something similar or better, and you know they've still got Vlasic, they've still got Kaiser, they've still got Sam Rinzel. You know the defensive group still looks as though it could be, you know, it could be a good defensive core. And we'll see what happens, you know, with Byram. Right, obviously it's natural, isn't it, at this particular stage to go, that's a wild, massive overpayment. Um, but you know, we'll see, kind of, you know, we'll see what happens. On a plus
This is a
side,
hot take, and I might be taking it too far here. But I said it to you in a message when it first went down. Is that I wouldn't be surprised if Louis Crevier ends up having a better career than Bowen Byram at the end of all this.
maybe, maybe.
And how
I
you
mean,
find that between a first overall pick and a seventh round pick in the draft. Like obviously the viewings may be skewed on that front, but I just think at the end of the
maybe.
careers, I think Crevier had a better career.
We'll see. We'll see. I mean, Byram's already got a Stanley Cup to his name, so he's already got his name on the cup in Colorado. Louis Crevier will go to Buffalo and will be a third pairing guy, maybe a seventh defenseman on that Buffalo team. Um, so we'll see. Don't get me wrong, I'm gutted to have lost Louis Crevier as a part of this deal. I really liked Crevier. I thought he was an absolute steal in that seventh. Well, not a steal in the seventh round, but to have a seventh round pick come in and play extensively in the NHL last couple of years. He's got an absolute cannon of a slap shot. 6'8", can lay the body when he wants to. But we'll see. It also helps that Byram has trained a lot in the off season with Connor Bedard as well, and the two of them are close. And look, as it stands at the moment, there isn't an extension as of yet for Connor Bedard. I'm not remotely concerned about that at all. I think that will get done. I think it's probably just working out the dollar amount with his agent. I don't think Connor Bedard's playing hardball at all. I don't think that he's being difficult. He's said multiple times he wants to be in Chicago for a long time, so that's fine. But you still want your star guy to be, you want to make moves that are going to keep them happy and on side. And if you kind of went to Connor Bedard and said, really tough year last year, obviously, we ended up with the fourth overall pick. Don't worry though, we've drafted this guy who's going to come into the league in 3 years' time, and he's gonna help us out big time. That's probably a little bit deflating. But look, we'll move on into the next pick, but I think it's a case of we'll wait and see. Now, if Bowen Byram is the only addition that Chicago make in the off season in the trade market, I think that's a problem. But from what I understand, they are looking at adding a top six forward. Who that is to be, we shall see. Obviously, there's a couple of names floating around out there. Um, but I think if you add a top six forward, you add Bowen Byram, you add Roman Kantsarov, you have Anton Frondel's first full year, you have another year of Connor Bedard, another year of Frank Nazar, Oliver Moore, Nick Lardis, Levshinov, Brinzel, all these guys. I think this team can make a big jump. Going forward next year, and they are already since Connor Bedard since his draft year, they are already 20 points better in the standings now than they were in his rookie season, and that is with some of the absolute guff that has played on this team in the last couple of years. So we'll see. But anyway, um, the the defenseman kind of went a little bit kind of rogue off of this. I mean, Albert Smits went to the New York Rangers. Um, I can't remember if that was who I had. Nope, neither of us had him going there. I had him. Carson Carroll's going there. You had Vigo Bjork going there, but Smits ends up in New York. I like that pick. I think he's big, he's physical, he's got great experience. I think Smits will probably be, I said with Ryan in our last episode, I think after McKenna and Stenberg, I think Smits will be the next one to be playing in the NHL on a consistent basis. I think purely because of the experience he already has. He seems a little bit further on in his development and his maturity already. He's already an Olympian, he's played at the World Juniors, plays in the DEL in the I can't remember if that's what it's called or not, but the German league.
Yeah.
So he's already got experience playing against men at this level. So I think we'll see Smits probably at the back end of this season coming up, and then I think he'll be a full-time fixture. I think if depending how he develops, he's a great guy to pair with someone like Adam Fox. Someone who's a bit more offensive minded, have someone who's a bit more kind of rough and tumble defensive defenseman to kind of allow him to flourish.
Yeah, out of all of these players in this draft, he's if you think of the term retool, Smits is the player for you,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
is
he
what the
is.
Rangers are so focused on being.
Um,
Um,
yeah, I mean, in terms of wanting to not tear everything apart but rebuild through young players, taking the guy who is probably the closest to the NHL is, I don't think that's a bad decision at all. Um, but Carson
I reckon he plays
Carroll's,
out the bats.
yeah,
I reckon there's no pun in it. I reckon he plays straight away. Smits.
you think they throw him straight in?
I think they do.
I don't think that's out of the realms of possibility at all. We'll see what happens. Obviously, AHL teams now have a slot available for players under 19, I think now, so they can certainly try him at the start. And if they decide they want to send him to the AHL to get a bit of seasoning, then they can absolutely do that. But I don't think that's a bad shout at all. Um, but yeah, Carson Carroll's ended up at the Calgary Flames. Um, Again, absolutely fine with this pick. No issues there. I
I
think
like this
again
pick as
he's
well.
a two-way guy. Again, someone who you would think down the line can play with Zane Parekh. He does have some good offense to his game as well. He's kind of one of the guys who can do it all. And you kind of look at need, which leads us kind of into the seventh overall pick. Smits and Carroll's both being left-handed defensemen kind of fits what both the Rangers and the Flames both need. Obviously, Perrette being a right shot, Adam Fox being a right shot, taking a left shot guy to pair with them, I think is a good move. And I think that ended up being the reason that the seventh overall pick fell right into Seattle's lap.
Yeah. Chase Reed, the most recent favourite for the best defenseman in this class, goes to the, the dry Seattle Kraken. Um, do you know what? I'm not mad at any of these picks. The Smiths, Carrolls, Reed to the respective teams. I think each team had the defenseman that they needed the most.
Yeah,
Reed will be like the All American with the Kraken. He'll be very good, very solid. I don't think he'll be spectacular, but I think that is going to be a very good pick for them.
yeah, and if he can come in and if he can become the number one defenseman on that Seattle team, that'd be fantastic for them. I think it was great for Seattle for Reed to fall to seven. I think that was a great pick for them. So yeah, I'd be very happy if I was the Kraken right now. The wild card forward then, Vigo Bjork, was someone who was scaling up and down draft boards all over the place. Was in talks, people were talking about him potentially being the third overall pick, as high as that. And some people had him down in kind of 10, 11, 12. But he ends up in Winnipeg. Now, I like this a lot. I think obviously Winnipeg got a bit fortunate off the back of a terrible year, where they were able to get a top 10 pick. And I think Bjork has the skill set to fit into that Winnipeg team fantastically. They've got some quite physical guys in that team already, so I'm not too concerned about the height aspect of Bjork. But he's had a pretty reasonable year in Djurgårdens in Sweden. Um, and yeah, he will be again someone who's probably a year or two away, but will hopefully, when Winnipeg are back up kind of where they would expect to be if they return there, then he's just a great little freebie that you can just chuck into that lineup and hopefully can kind of be productive right away. But yeah, I like that pick for Winnipeg a lot.
Yeah, I like that too. I had Hemming going to Winnipeg, so the fact they managed to get Bjork instead, I think that's a good win for them. It might project a bit of excitement into that team,
Yeah,
add some depth point scoring down the line, providing Shifley and Connor are still there as well. So I think that's a very good pick.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Um, And then the ninth overall pick, Keaton Verhoff, ended up in San Jose. Now, if this pays off, and Verhoff becomes the defenseman that he could be, then the Sharks have got their elite right shot defenseman. I think there's Verhoff's a bit more of an unknown commodity at this point. He's certainly the most raw of the defensemen that have been picked before him, but arguably has the highest ceiling of all of them. Right now, it's 50-50 as to whether or not he becomes that. But even if he can be, a good second pair guy, when San Jose are looking to compete, I think that'd be a great pick for them. I think they were really happy that he was able to fall into that ninth overall spot. And yeah, I think they've got a great player on their hands if he can realise his potential.
Yeah. The San Jose thought they would at least have like two picks in this first round, and I thought they would have probably gone forward and one defenseman, and they probably would have thought to take the high defenseman and the lower forward. Now, because Stenberg was going to be there for them, and they weren't going to trade out of that pick and stuff like that, I think they've kind of flipped it. They got the better forward, but I guess the worse defenseman. But overall, I think they'll be very, very happy with this. I see both Verhoff and Stenberg both being NHL players fairly. Well, obviously Stenberg straight away, Verhoff maybe a year or two behind, but I think these two are going to be sort of stud pieces that are going to underpin their team for years ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. And Verhoff's going to go back to the University of North Dakota next year. Probably playing on a defensive pairing with Carson Carrolls, who is also going there as well. So yeah, that'll be fun to watch those guys kind of play off of each other and everything. I think that'll be really good. The 10th overall pick then was winger Wyatt Cullen, who ended up being drafted by Nashville in number 10. I'll just say personally, Wyatt Cullen wasn't someone I knew a ton about going into the going into the draft, other than seeing his name around these draft boards. The main thing, and kind of leads into our first nice story, is his dad, Matt Cullen, three-time Stanley Cup champion, played in Nashville, played everywhere actually. Did his dad? He played for Anaheim, Florida, Carolina, Rangers, Ottawa, Minnesota, Nashville, Pittsburgh. Bit of a journeyman. Played for half the league, but yeah, he. So Wyatt Cullen gets drafted 10th overall to go to Nashville. So nice little story there. There was a couple of guys in our top 10 that we did, who we were just gonna touch on. I think you had Tin and Lawrence, I think, in your top 10. Was that right?
Yeah, he's Tin and Lawrence to the Senators at 9.
Yeah. Well,
Obviously, because San Jose got that pick, they picked a defenseman, so they went to the Blues at 11.
yeah, went to the Blues at 11. Um, could potentially be a good centre pick for them. Obviously playing at Boston University at the moment. Could be a nice piece to add there. Obviously, the Blues have just traded for Mason McTavish. Um, they've got Rob Thomas there already. Could be a nice piece to kind of bring in again, probably a year or two away. Oscar Hemming, your pick for the Winnipeg Jets, was drafted 14th overall to the Columbus Blue Jackets. The forward out of Boston College, which is where I believe he's going back. Could find himself with a good role to play on that Blue Jackets team, depending on how their roster shakes out. Kind of moving.
Marchenko unhappy there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Marchenko could be looking for one foot out the door, as could Zach Werenski potentially, which would be. You thought the cost for Bowen Byram was high. I daren't imagine what the trade package for a Zach Werenski just off the back of a Norris Trophy season, what that looks like. But it was reported this week that prior to the draft that Zach Werenski was going to have a sit down talk with the management of a team, with the team about his future. Now, I'm not sure I've ever seen an NHL player meet with the management of a team to discuss their future, and they go, "Yeah, cool, it's fine. We've talked it out. I'm going to stay." Um, so we'll. I think Werenski could be on the move, but if you are Columbus and you are losing Zach Werenski, which would be a massive loss for this team, there is no better time to trade him than right now in terms of the return and what you'd get for him.
Yeah, it could have been, well, before the draft, it could have been for the fourth overall pick. Frank Nazar and a couple of other first round picks down the line as well.
Yeah, potentially. But I mean, he said he wasn't going to make his decision or make his mind up until after the draft anyway. So that just made it, kind of
Yeah,
ruled him out of any trade conversation there. But yeah, Oscar Hemming goes at 14 to Columbus, and Ethan Belchets, who was someone who it was a bit of a reach maybe for him to be in the top 10, but he went 17th overall to the Utah Mammoth. Obviously, the big man, massive forward. Um, Great season in Windsor in the OHL this year. Probably he's committed himself to somewhere in the NCAA that I can't remember off the top of my head. But he's going to take the college route, and could potentially add another exciting forward piece to an already exciting forward core in Utah. And I think he provides something that they don't really have at the moment in terms of someone who's a bit bigger, a bit more physical. Will be some nice insulation or a nice bigger body to have around the likes of Cooley and co.
a couple ones I like from the first round as well is Nikita Klepov, who's gone to the Anaheim Ducks. I think that was a good little pickup for them at 15.
Yep, yep, like that a lot.
Savanto as well for the Capitals. I can see Oliver Savanto being a good second round centre for them in the future. I think that was a very good pick for them at
Yeah,
18.
yeah,
Uh,
no, absolutely, absolutely. Um, Now, what we did see was some really nice stories come out of this draft. The first one I wanted to touch on was, well, before we get to my dream scenario that I plotted with Ryan, which did come true. Jackson Cover, taken 32nd overall, first round pick to the Ottawa Senators. Um, First player ever from the Cayman Islands to be drafted. Now, he was born in the US, grew up in the Cayman Islands, didn't start, never laced up a pair of skates until he was 13 years old, and 5 years later, he's a first round pick in the NHL draft. It's never too late. He was playing roller hockey in the Cayman Islands on the beach, on the kind of the make do kind of rinks that they set up there. I just think that's a great story. Obviously, he's come from the London Knights in the OHL. Really, really historically successful OHL team. They've produced loads of fantastic players over the years. And yeah, I just really liked Kova being drafted to the Senators there. I thought that was a great story.
yeah, that's a Cayman Islands national team at the Olympics coming soon.
It's just him.
Just
Just him. A bunch of guys turning up with rollerblades, going, "We're on these are wrong." And then we saw what I wanted more than anything in the world was for the scarily identical twins of Liam and Marcus Rook. I just wanted them to be drafted to the same team. That's all I wanted. And that came true. They are both Pittsburgh Penguins. They have also both come from the Medicine Hat Tigers, and they are both committed to the University of North Dakota next year. So these two, whilst they are identical twins, they literally make the same decision on every little aspect in their life. I'm sure when they sign their second contracts in Pittsburgh, if they stick around there, they will sign for the same amount. And yeah, these two are, well, hopefully, they're the highest drafted twins since the Sedins. We'll see if they can produce anything close in Pittsburgh.
what it is as well, but their names just scream Pittsburgh Penguin as well.
Yeah,
Liam and Marcus Rook.
yeah,
And Liam got drafted in round one. And I know like he did a conference or whatever, and he was saying how he had to calm his brother down to say, "Look, don't worry, don't stress, it'll work out," and it did.
yeah.
Um, so it's gonna be interesting watching him.
I mean, that's going to be an absolute kind of mind fuck for the opposition. You know, when these two, they'll play on the same line together. They've got to. I mean, they did so in Medicine Hat this year. Both scored over 100 points each in the CHL this year. They both had really really productive years. I can't remember which one the goal scorer is. I think it might be Marcus, but it was basically Liam teeing up Marcus all season, or vice versa. I can't remember. But yeah, I'm just really happy that the pair of them are on the same team.
They're gonna play in front of Verhoff and Carroll's as well, if all of them are going to North Dakota.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that team's going to be quite stacked. Kind of moving into next year, they've got a good program there at North Dakota. That'll be a good team to watch. We then saw Joe Iginla, brother of Tej Iginla, son of the legendary Jerome Iginla, drafted by the Calgary Flames in round three of the draft. So the Iginla legacy lives on in Calgary. Yeah, great for them. It's unknown at the moment. You know, we don't know if Joe Iginla's going to be kind of a, you know, if he's going to crack the NHL, what kind of role he'll have. But I just like that the kind of Iginla lineage lives on in Calgary.
Yeah, I think everyone was good when Tees didn't go to the Flames.
Yeah,
Um,
I still think that trade's going to happen at some point in the future. I don't think it'll be the, you know, I think that Tej Ginler at some point in his career will play in Calgary.
yeah, let's get him started in the NHL first.
Yeah,
I think he's going to
uh,
play this year, Tees. But yeah,
yeah, I think so. I think so too. Um, and the kind of the last big story, and I mean, again, obviously, this comes from a mild point of bitterness. Just seeing the kind of reaction online from San Jose fans was the big man Alexander Karmanov. Again, I spoke with Ryan about him. I was putting his geography to the test, asking him where North Bay was because I had no idea. Um, the 7'1" defenseman gets drafted 201st overall to the San Jose Sharks, tallest draft pick in NHL history. Um, Now, he was drafted 201st. Chicago had the 200th pick. I would love to have seen them take a flyer on this guy because at the seventh round picks have very little value in of themselves, and the percentage chance of those guys actually making the NHL is minimum. And I just think if you've got someone with a single defining characteristic that is so glaring, I just think why not? Why you know you don't know what he's going to become. Now, various draft analysts have called him the worst player in the draft. Various analysts have said he can't skate. A lot of people have said that his 7'1" frame actually makes him a massive hindrance to himself, and he basically can't move. He might not even need to move because his reach with his stick, he could probably stand at centre ice and probably cover bench to bench with his reach. But he ends up in San Jose. Again, we'll wait and see. I saw some San Jose fans online going, "Oh, this is an A plus draft selection. You know, if we can see him in the NHL, he'd be mass." I was like, "Holy glaze!" Like, let's, you know, let he scored. I think he scored like 14 points in the OHL last season in like 50 games or something. So like, we'll see if he can actually, you know, he'd probably be better switching his hand to basketball and getting drafted into the NBA. But we'll see.
passes galore.
Yeah, he could be the next Zdeno Chara. He could be a guy who we never see again. But he also becomes the first Moldovan-born NHL pick. I mean, he could have been born in Timbuktu. He could have been born in Antarctica. I think at 7'1", I think the chance that he was drafted this year was always going to be a possibility. And yeah, he ends up in San Jose. So we shall see.
Yeah, I do know that he has to have special equipment made, especially for him. because of his height.
Yeah,
Love it. He
yeah,
can't just
yeah.
pick up any old stick. If he breaks his stick on the ice, I can see the Sharks rolling their eyes, running into the back to try and get them and make a new one.
Yeah, getting the boat oar that is his stick. I mean, I do remember when Zdeno Chara played because the NHL has regulations over like stick length, etc. He was the only player in the league granted an exception to the length of his stick, and he was able to have it over sort of regulation size, purely to assist with how big he is. So yeah, again, we'll see. I'm sure he'll turn up to prospect camp, and you never know. Maybe he goes to look to make an impression there, and maybe in training camp he puts Celebrini into the fifth row and snaps his clavicle or something like that. You never know. Or
Um,
maybe I don't know. Maybe the Blackhawks didn't pick him at 200th because maybe they've slipped him 25 grand to go out there and just bulldoze everyone in training camp. We'll see. But I'm looking forward to the social media coverage at least of watching this absolute behemoth turn up and just have him try and do normal people things. I think he's 7'4" on his skates, so he just looks kind of comically large. So we'll see.
it's
But
like a being character that you created on the video game
yeah,
where you
yeah, absolutely. He's yeah, he will yeah. I don't know, man. It'll be entertaining to say the least. I just want there to be like a social media series of like Alex Karmanov doing regular person things, but at 7'1" tall, or just him like
hearing
going
you
in,
a Jack Russell Terrier.
or just like him going into like a local school in San Jose to like speak to some kids, and him being sat at like the kids' table with like his knees up over his head because he's just too big.
I
Um,
love that.
yeah, but yeah. So it was all in all great draft. Um, we'll see. Obviously, with these prospects, their NHL journey starts now. A lot of these guys are going to college. A lot of them continuing their development in the CHL. We won't know for some time, how these guys are going to pan out. But I think that's part of the fun of it for me, is seeing these guys of the future right before your eyes and seeing their draft day pictures and then seeing them 4 years later, already looking like a man. When at the moment these guys they're just boys, um, just kids. So let's see how they all pan out. I can't wait to see who makes the cut.
Yeah. Should we take a quick break and come back and just round off some of the other trades that have happened in the NHL the past week?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll take a quick break and we'll be right back with you.
And we're back. Now we're going to get into some trades rather than just draft talk here. Is there a particular trade that jumps out to you, Matt?
God, I mean, God, we've covered Eklund, we've covered Byram. We'll work from the bottom of our list upwards. The Washington Capitals loading up a little bit in the forward department. They had Jordan Kyrou. They also had Alex Tuck to their forward lines. Kyrou was traded for Connor McMichael, Milton Gastron, and a 2026 first round pick that ended up being the where is it?
Maddox, Dejanay.
It ended up being, yeah, the Maddox Dejanay pick, which I think was the 12th overall pick. No, 16th. So he ends up in Washington. Alex Tuck was traded for a third round pick and David Kampf. And Alex Tuck then signs a 8 by $10.5 million deal in order to stay in Washington. And this is kind of similar to what we saw with the Darren Radish trade, in the aspect that it was clear that he wasn't going to re-sign in Buffalo, so the return doesn't look massive. But that's because it was either that or lose him for nothing. So Buffalo restock a third round pick, and they also get David Kampf, who he's been around the league plentifully at this point, former Chicago Blackhawk. He's a perfectly fine bottom six NHL forward. Um, yeah, so he's fine. So he will go to
Both
Buffalo,
these players.
and
Yeah, but
go on.
sorry, you go. You keep pausing. I keep thinking it's time for me to go, but then you keep talking. Sorry,
No,
you
no,
go now.
no, no. You okay? Yeah, I mean, I don't know what this necessarily means for the Capitals. I don't know if this is them planning for life after Ovechkin, or if this is we're going to have one more good go of it with Ovechkin. But Kyrou and Tuck both have term. Tuck has 8 years. I think Kyrou has another 6 at his current deal. I think. So they're able to get some solidified top six talent into that lineup. In the immediacy, which is great for them.
Yep. So I was just giving it a, just making sure.
Oh man.
I reckon in 5 years' time, Kairu and Tuck will have been doing pretty well at the Capitals, and they are the definition of Washington Capitals players.
Yeah,
I don't know what it is, but Jordan Kairu, he's the guy who plays for the Capitals. And Alex Tuck, yeah, I don't know what it is, whether it's the names or the style of play or what, but I just think this makes sense that these players are going to this team. Um, I think it suits what the Capitals have done in recent years. Obviously, Ovechkin's been one of the biggest names in the sport, but when they've been successful, it's not been off the back of huge superstar names. It's been come off of a very solid roster with very solid, if not spectacular players. And this is what Jordan Kyrou and Alex Tuck will bring.
yeah,
So,
for sure.
again, on the madness at the trade calculator, which is what I've been referring to quite a bit recently, I'm not mad at this trade.
No, no. We then saw former second overall pick Simon Nemec, as well as Maxim Tisplakov, have been traded to the Calgary Flames in exchange for a conditional 2027 first round pick, a conditional 2028 first round pick, and a 2026 second round pick, as well as Etienne Morin. So Nemec ends up on, goes from New Jersey. It just wasn't working for him there. He wanted to get a fresh start. I think he's going to have an opportunity to play the minutes that he wants to play in Calgary. I think that's probably a good move for everyone involved. You look at the Devils; they're able to get a good haul back for him. And they can use that then to either draft guys in the future, or if they want to make a big splash for a defenseman, maybe someone like Zach Werenski, who knows? Then they've now got the ammunition to do that.
Yeah. I mean, I look at this trade in line with, I guess, Bo and Byram. And the difference for me is the first round picks aren't going to be the fourth overall, I wouldn't imagine. Yeah, Nemec wasn't working in New Jersey. He's got plenty of runway in Calgary, who now have Nemec, Perek, Carroll's going to be coming through. They're building quite the good young defensive core, maybe slightly attacking, but nonetheless, I think it's going to be exciting times for Calgary. They're giving up some capital and they don't have much stock in order to get more draft picks. So I think their forward core is going to be stunted and impacted moving forward. But
Yeah,
it might be one of these teams where who was it last year where the top like defensemen were like outscoring the forwards. I feel like it might be that this year.
yeah, could well be, could well be. Um, we then saw pending RFA Pavel Dorofeyev. He got traded to the New York Rangers. Proper retool move. Um, he's gone there
Ding.
for uh, 2 first round picks, um, which the Montreal Canadiens used to end up. Wait, hang on. Am I reading that correctly? Sorry, two first round
Yeah.
picks and a 2026 third round pick, with Pavel Dorofeyev then signing a 7 year, $11 million deal in New York. Again, I have no issues with this trade at all. I really, really like Dorofeyev. Um, Proper power play specialist, great age for this Rangers team. You know, mid 20s. And if you're Vegas, it was always going to be really hard to pay Dorofeyev. They couldn't have paid him $11 million. You know, they want to re-sign Rasmus Anderson. Um, you know, they're already right up against the cap as it is, so they need to move those picks on. Move the player on, get some first round picks back, which I am absolutely positive that Vegas will not use to draft any players at all. And
Well, they didn't. They traded the first round pick they got this year to the Canadians.
Well, yeah, there you go, there you go. Um, and you know that gives them more ammunition to stay competitive. So yeah, I think all in all, I quite like this trade for both teams.
Yeah, I like it too. It was going to happen, and I can't believe Rangers gave up. I guess so much for it because we just talked about Alex Tuck moving because he was going to be leaving. I'm not sure whether Dorothy was a RFA and Tuck was a
RFA,
UFA.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's potentially the difference there. But yeah, obviously the Rangers lost Panarin to the Kings. They traded him over there, and they got another winger, hotshot scorer who's a lot younger. They've signed him up to a long-term deal. This, I could see this being an absolutely great move, but also falling on their faces as well. This is probably the biggest range I can see from a trade where he could be the next superstar, or was he only good because he was scoring goals on the power play in Vegas because he had Marner and everyone else backing him a lot.
And that will be the
It's,
test. That'll be the
yeah,
test, won't it? Is you know, can he step up and be the guy? And was the reason that he didn't score as many goals at 5-on-5 because he was, you know, being kind of buried behind Eichel and Marner and, you know, Hurtle and everyone else. So he's got an opportunity to play a more elevated role in New York. So I agree with you. I think this could go one of two ways, but I'm leaning more towards the fact that it's a positive move for the Rangers. They get another hotshot scoring Russian winger, you know, as you said, to replace Panarin, who you know who's in LA now. So yeah, I like this for both teams. Um, we then saw the Boston Bruins trade for JJ Paterka, who only lasted a year in Utah. He gets traded for two first round picks. That first round pick was from Utah, was sent to Detroit in exchange for Sebastian Kosa, who's the other pick here. We'll stick to Paterka for a moment though. But look, you know, two first round picks for Paterka. I really, really like JJ Paterka. I think he's an outstanding player. Um, you know, I don't know why it didn't work in Utah for him. I wouldn't even go as far to say that it didn't work. You know, he still had a pretty productive season. And in that case, they've maybe, you know, sold while the price was high. If you're Utah, you know, they do have a lot of exciting young forwards. But what Utah was struggling with was, you know, goaltending outside of Vemelka. They get Sebastian Kosa, former first round pick by the Detroit Red Wings, someone who you would think can probably back up Vemelka into this upcoming season, and then we'll hopefully be able to sort of take the lead into it from from here.
yeah. I think the Paterka trade came first, and then the Kosa trade came after that.
Hmm.
But I think the Utah Mammoth was actually aiming to get a goaltender, and this is the path for them to do it. So yes, they've probably given up more. Kosa's probably got to back up Vemelka this year, um, and Paterka obviously were a good performer for them. But they've also got a future first round pick to swing it, and they're hoping that Kosa will become like the top goaltender moving forward.
Yeah,
But Vemelka played a horrendous amount of games last year. They did
yeah, he
not
did.
trust Vanacek at all. So I think this is, I guess, a roster management type of trade and movement, with Utah having quite a lot of decent forward depth with young players. So Paterka was, I guess, the last one in, so the first one out.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. I think it's a move that makes sense. Like you said, it's a roster management decision. Kosa obviously kind of struggling to break that Detroit team with John Gibson being there and everything. So he needed a move. He's been outstanding in the AHL. Really, really solid numbers there. He's a big goaltender, 6'6", I believe he is. So kind of very much in that kind of Jay Cottinger kind of build. So yeah, I'm excited to see what Kosa can do at the NHL level. Because he's kind of waited long enough for his shot now, and I'm kind of looking forward to seeing what happens there. We then saw the rights for John Carlson being traded to the Carolina Hurricanes for a sixth round pick, as well as defenseman Kyle Masters. Um, Now, look, this I think it probably points towards John Carlson maybe signing in Carolina. This doesn't mean anything at the moment. All it means is that basically you have a free agency window, like a re-sign phase before free agency, where all the players who are pending UFAs or RFAs on your roster, you have an extra bit of time to negotiate a new deal with them before they hit the free agency market. Now, basically, it just pushes Carolina to the top of the queue. And it means that they have an extra bit of time to try and negotiate with and convince John Carlson to stay there. If he ends up hitting the UFA market, they've only lost a sixth round pick. Okay, so it's not the end of the world at all. But the Carolina Hurricanes coming off the back of a Stanley Cup, John Carlson in his mid-30s might fancy his name on another Stanley Cup. You know, you could you could absolutely see Carlson signing there and bolstering what is already an outstanding roster.
Yeah. I think the term that's been picking around for Carlson is 2 by 10.
Yeah,
That's what he was wanting. Do Carolina have that cap space to do
they
it? Yes,
they
they do.
absolutely do. Yeah, I think
Of
they've got
course
about
they do.
11. They got about 11 and a half, I think, in cap space at the moment.
Yeah. And I'm just having a quick check on Puckpedia to see who they've got to sign. I know we touched on it in the Stanley Cup episode, but looking at this, like they've got Freddie Anderson, Mike Riley, who will go. I think they've already decided now that Alex Nikishin's probably going to go
Hmm.
because they can't afford to sign both Carlson and Nikishin, and the fact that they traded for Carlson. That's the only point where I'm kind of stuck on here because Nikishin was doing great. He was a third rounder, but he's a young guy. He's probably young, other than Keandre Miller. He was the only defenseman in that team below the age of 30. Obviously, Carlson's coming in at age 36. They're looking at the window that they're in at the minute. Who's the better choice? Only who knows. But I think Nikishin goes. I think they get a haul back for him,
Yeah,
and they sign Carlson for a couple of years. And I think they're pretty much locked and loaded and ready to go.
yeah, they are looking to capitalize on their window at the moment, aren't they? And if they end up trading Nikishin because it gives them more ammunition to add anything else that they feel that they might need, then fair play to them. And being able to replace Nikishin with John Carlson is not a bad deal at all. So I think if they get a 2 by 10, or they might, Carlson might even look at that situation. He might even take a bit of a discount, in order to stay on a team for two. He might even do 2 by 8.5 or 2 by 9 or something, just to give them that extra little bit of wiggle room. In order to make another run of it next year. And I'm really really worried about the Hurricanes next season. If they add John Carlson into that mix, I think that roster's already stacked. Yeah, I think they'll be outstanding, and he's the kind of guy who will play the kind of hockey that Rob Brindamore wants to play. And he's a good guy in the room. He's got his name on the cup as well. Brings a bit of experience. Yeah, I think it's a great deal.
This is. I'm sorry to bring it back, but it's a hot topic of both of our thought processes. But the Bowen Byram trade,
Mm.
like what Chicago gave up for Bowen Byram, where they could have given a sixth round pick and had John Carlson for 2 years and drafted a Daxon Rudolph or Keaton Verhoff or Chase Reed or any of these names. Carlson would have been that stopgap for them 2 years.
You're
Or
going
the
under
rookie
the
defenseman, I guess.
you're going under the assumption though that John Carlson would want to sign in Chicago for 2 years.
Yes, but Chicago have so much cap room, they could have given him 2 by 15.
They could have done.
Money talks.
Yeah, they absolutely could have done. And yeah, it's an option. But but what they then have in 2 years' time is you're then having to then figure out that defenseman role. And if that draft pick isn't ready yet, then you then run into another problem. Bone Byram is 10 years younger than John Carlson is. So he's someone who I think they wanted someone with a bit of longevity, someone who can be around the team for a long time. I absolutely accept your point, absolutely, and I would have loved for John
We'll see.
Carlson to end up in Chicago, and he
We'll
still
see.
might end up in Chicago because he hasn't signed anything on the dotted line with Carolina yet. But I would think it would be very, very unlikely. Um, yeah, I get it. I get the point. But the trade's done now, so we're just in the
This
business
is
of
why this
seeing.
part of the season is. This is why this part of the season is fun to talk and just to throw random thoughts out there because both of us could both be completely wrong and a different thing
Yeah,
could happen that be successful. But yeah,
yeah, yeah. Again, we'll see. I feel like that's been my most commonly used wordage in this episode, but we'll see how it all goes. We then also saw
Chicago will see Hawks.
We then saw Jack Drury go from Colorado to Nashville for five and sign a 5 by 4.5 deal. It's another Colorado Avalanche going to the Nashville Predators. Obviously, they've just taken their GM. So, I mean, yeah, nice little pick. I like Jack Drury. I think he's a nice little kind of middle six, bottom six kind of guy. 5 years, 4.5. With the way the cap's moving, it's nothing really. I think that's a nice move for Nashville and just gives them a little bit more forward depth, to have with the likes of Stamkos, Forsberg, Marchessault, Evangelista, all those guys, and just adds a bit more depth there. Drury can go into Nashville already knowing the GM, already knowing kind of what's expected of him, and I think it's a good move for everyone involved. If you're Colorado, you can probably pick up a fourth line guy to kind of do the job on your roster, and it frees you up more money to sign Cale Makar.
Yeah, good business all round.
Absolutely. I just had to mute my microphone there to sneeze. Jesus Christ. Thank you very much. Um, Well, I think that brings us to the end of our draft coverage and trade coverage and everything like that. We now kind of move into the off season where we'll be, obviously covering any other deals that happen. Jason Robertson's a name that's floating around a lot. Um, Marchenko's name's going around. Werenski, Connor Hellebuck, Dylan Larkin. Seeing all these big names, all kind of in the trade conversation at the moment. We'll be bringing you the coverage of those as always, as the UK's only NHL podcast covering all 30 teams on a weekly basis through the regular season.
Yeah. So probably another episode coming out next week. We'll see what big trades happen. But yeah, do you want to sign us out?
Yeah, absolutely. So, guys, as always, you can find us on both X and Instagram at the PBP Podcast. You can find us on TikTok at Penalty Box Perspective, and you can get in touch with us at penaltyboxperspective@gmail.com if you've got any thoughts or feelings on the show, or if you want to get in touch with us, or if you want to tell us how shit the Bowen Byram trade was. Please feel free to go and do that for us. If you want to watch the podcast in glorious visual and see my slightly sunburnt face, then you can do so on both the Penalty Box Perspectives official YouTube page, as well as in Spotify as well. Please go and consider liking and subscribing over at YouTube. It's free. It helps me, Nathaniel, out big time. If you also want to go and drop us a 5-star review on both Apple Podcasts and or Spotify, again, helps us out, doesn't cost you a penny, and would really mean the world to us if you're able to do that for us. In the meantime, guys, take it easy. Enjoy your summers, and we'll see you on the next one. Take it easy.